Hello, everyone. Andrew Middleton here from the Indie Interview. And today I'm going to be talking to Ali Lott from Heritage Estate Planning, and we're going to be talking about wills and power of attorney. Something quite important to I'm Not Done Yet, the Indies. Why do we need them?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? If we start with wills, it's really important that everybody over the age of 18, I would say, so it's not specifically just Indies, I would say anyone over the age of 18 needs to make a will to make sure that anything that is important to them does actually happen after they die. So, for example, if you have children, you can mention your children. If there's people that are important to you in your life, you can mention them. You can make sure that everything that you've worked hard for, like your property or anything that you own, goes to the people that you want it to go to, as opposed to who the law would dictate it goes to without a will. So it's just a piece of paper really setting out your wishes, but it is very important.
Loads of questions. I mean, you talk about it going somewhere else. You know, what might happen if you don't have a will?
Well, I do speak to a number of people about this, and this can prompt people into making a will when they find out exactly where it does go. If, for example, you are married with children and you want everything to go to your spouse and children, it's probably not going to be a complete disaster not having a will, because that will pretty much happen depending on the value of your estate, and it may not be the proportions you want, but on the whole that would happen. But if you were, let's say, not married and you didn't have children, the law would stipulate that, first of all, if you have surviving parents, it goes upwards, so it goes up. Then it will go, if there are no parents, it will go along to siblings. And then it starts to go out further. So it will start to go to nephews and nieces and cousins and so on and so forth, until there's no one left but the state, and then the state would receive it. And quite often I speak to people who perhaps have either had a falling out with parents or siblings or someone, and that wouldn't perhaps be exactly where they would want it to go.
So it's really about what you want happening.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have the freedom in this country to say where we want everything to go. Many countries don't have that. They have prescribed laws that things have to be left in certain proportions, and we don't have that in England. You can leave your estate if you want to, leave everything to charity. If you want to, you can. But if that is what you want, you need to write it down, because it won't happen unless you do write it down in a will.
I think what puts a lot of people off writing a will or making a will is kind of the cost, and you know, it's a big palaver, isn't it? Isn't it a difficult process?
Well, I don't think so, but most people I speak to, Andrew, think exactly the same. And I think people put it off for a long time because they just think they're not going to understand it. There's going to be a lot of legal jargon. It's going to be expensive. And if their life changes again, they'll have to make it again, and then that's more expense. So I tend to find, when I sit down with people and just ask them some questions about what they want to happen, usually at the end of that process, most people just say, oh wow, I was expecting it to be a really horrible experience, I've been putting it off for years, and actually it's really straightforward, isn't it? And absolutely it is, because it's my job, or another will writer, if you saw another will writer, it's our job to take the complications away and make it straightforward, so that you just say, this is what I want to happen, and then we can legalise it all for you. With me particularly, I can't speak for other will writers, but if my clients make wills with me, I provide free amendments. So as their situation changes in the future, then there's no cost for alterations, because that is another thing I think that can get in the way of people making wills, if they think things will change in the future.
Okay, so you know, it's something we shouldn't put off doing. It's not going to cost us an arm and a leg, and it's a relatively straightforward process.
Yes, I would. That's exactly what I would say.
And you know, if we don't do it, then potentially, you know, anything could happen, depending on what our circumstances.
I mean, the law would kick in. So, as I say, there is a prescribed route that it would go to. But if you have written down your wishes really clearly, it can stop all sorts of conflicts and disputes and lengthy legal battles and costly legal battles and things. If people come forward and start challenging challenging it. If there's a very clearly well documented will, it does prevent those type of issues. And also if there have been issues within a family, if there's been fallings out, someone like me can advise on the best way to document everything to prevent any issues coming up in the future. So yes, I would say don't put it off, because none of us have got a crystal ball, have we? And once it's done, it's done. And I always say to people, we've written it now, hopefully for way in the future. It's, you know, it doesn't
we'll hope that, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's done, and then you've got peace of mind. It doesn't keep coming back in your mind, thinking, I must make a will, I must make a will, because it's done.
Something worthwhile doing and doing so. Now let's go on to power of attorney, because actually for all of us who are getting a little bit older, this is something that could be very useful, because we don't know what the future will bring. So maybe explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's back to the crystal ball again, isn't it? And again, I talk to everyone about power of attorney. It doesn't matter about age. I think a lot of people think, oh, power of attorney is for when I'm really old, or I start to get dementia or something. And it absolutely isn't. Everyone over the age of 18 should have a power of attorney, because once you get to 18 and you're an adult, you're in charge of making your own decisions legally. And if you lose mental capacity through accident or illness or something, without the document in place, there's nobody that legally can take over your finances and your health decisions if you can't. And then it would involve going to the Court of Protection to get documentation to act for someone else, which is really expensive and very time consuming, 6 months plus.
So it could take you 6 months.
Yeah.
To help someone, and really expensive. What are we talking? Hundreds, thousands?
Yeah, thousands. You're looking at court fees, and that's assuming it all goes through first time. If there's anything wrong on the court application, it all gets, as you know, with anything like this, it would all get sent back. That would cause further delays and more costs the next time you make a court application. So we'd always advise people to do these things while they're of sound mind, because then they've got the choice of who they want to appoint, who they trust. And that's the conversation that we'd be having to talk about the family and extended family and friends and things like that. Who do they really trust? If push came to shove and decisions had to be made, who are the people in their lives that are going to be the right people to make those decisions for finance and also for health? Rather than it being a court appointed person that might not have been their choice if they'd made their own choice.
So how does a power of attorney actually work? So, how do people know it's time to use it?
Okay, so with finance, you can choose to register the power of attorney for immediate use. So this just means that it's all set up and registered so that if you ever get to a point in life, so let's assume you've still got mental capacity, but if you just get to a point in life where hearing's quite difficult, I speak to a number of people that find it quite challenging to phone companies up and have conversations because the hearing is not great, or you just get to a point where you just don't want to deal with things anymore. If it's registered for immediate use, it means the people you trust can just take over when you want them to, partially or fully. Or you can set it up that it's only in effect useful if you lose mental capacity. So while you have mental capacity, it's just sat there in a drawer. And if you were to lose mental capacity through illness or accident, and that would be as diagnosed by a medical professional, that's when your attorneys would definitely act for you.
So it's not just someone saying, I think you've lost mental capacity. It
has to be a medical expert. Can't just be somebody deciding, oh, I quite fancy looking after your money now for you. Can't be
that's the big worry, isn't it? That
absolutely.
And presumably you while you have mental capacity, you can change who it is. So if you would have a big falling out or something, you could say, actually, I'm not sure that's a good idea anymore.
Yeah, you just revoke it and then re-register a new one. So absolutely, it's completely within your control. And while you have mental capacity, you can change it, you can stop it, anything you want, and you've got that document. So it's your choice when someone acts for you. You have to physically hand it over.
What I didn't realise, which has been sort of eye-opening for me, is this idea of immediate use.
Yeah.
So how does that work? If I lose my hearing and I want someone to step in and perhaps sort something for me.
Yeah. So if the person that you've named as your attorney is able and willing to do that, that's fine. Then the actual power of attorney document would need to be registered with each provider. So if it was a partial need for help, so the phone is a really good example of that, then any companies that you're dealing with on the phone would need to have a copy of that power of attorney. So that would need to happen. So they would have an internal process to register it, because you know what it's like yourself. If you've ever had to help someone else on the phone, usually the company will say, oh no, we need the authority of that person, and that can cause problems. So by registering the document, it just means that is done, and they can in fact speak for the person. But while the person's got mental capacity, if they want to still carry on managing their bank account because it's done online or whatever, that's absolutely fine. So it can be kind of a halfway house, if you like.
So is this difficult to set up?
No. You've got two choices, really. You can apply directly on the Office of the Public Guardian website. So I'm sure we can give the details out as part of this afterwards.
Yeah.
Go online and do it yourself if you want to, if you feel you've got a very, very straightforward situation. Yeah. The benefit of having it done professionally is there's certain wording that we normally recommend is put in, and we can give someone advice on how to set it up, because there are a few quirky things to be aware of that you perhaps wouldn't necessarily be aware of if you do it yourself. But if cost is a huge concern, then you can do it yourself, just pay the registration fee on the website. If you want some advice and make sure it's set up absolutely right for you, then you can see a professional to have it done. So it is very, very straightforward.
So if you were going to have it set up professionally, what sort of ballpark figure might you be paying for it?
If you were, well, it will vary from company to company. If I was to see a person, let's say a single person that wants to do both financial and health, so that would be what I would recommend. So that's 2 documents. The charge for us to draw that up would be in the region of £300 plus VAT for both documents. Right. And then there's a registration fee of £164 that's payable to the Office of the Public Guardian. So that's roughly the sort of cost that you'd be looking for. There are companies, and again, this is where you want to perhaps shop around, there are companies that will charge thousands. Right. So it would be between a couple of hundred and 1,000, I would say. I know when my mum did hers, she paid 1,000. So I know this from experience.
Oh dear. So there's quite a range in what you could be charged for it.
Yeah, and it's the same with wills as well, Andrew. And it's, you know, it depends who you want to go with. And I would always say, if you're going to have it professionally done, go with a company you feel that you trust, go with the person that you feel understands your situation and you trust and you've got a good relationship with, and you know, don't you? Yeah. I think people go with people, and it's really important that whoever you choose gets you and your situation.
So if people are persuaded that actually I should go out and get a will and or go out and put a power of attorney in place, you know, are there some resources out there that might help them? You know, how do they?
Definitely. Well, I've got a website which people can go onto if they want to. That's got all sorts of useful information about power of attorney and wills and things like that. So that, you know, that's absolutely fine. They could certainly go onto that if they want to. The other ones, I had to think before I spoke to you. There's a company that I download forms from called Independent Age. So you might have come across that in you know, other aspects of what you do. But independentage.org are brilliant. So I use, for example, their funeral planning form. It's excellent, and they have loads of resources around wills and power of attorney and just anything financial that might be a concern. They're very good. And if you're looking for a will writer and you want a local will writer who is registered, then I would thoroughly recommend going onto the Institute of Professional Will Writers site. And then I'm a member of that, and most really good will writers, I would say, are a member of that, and that it's an optional voluntary regulatory board basically, but they're very good, and they set out a really good code of practice so that you know that anyone on there is really, you know, really good and will really look after you.
And I presume if anyone wanted to talk to you, they could find you through your website.
Absolutely, and all of our consultations are completely free. So if you've just got questions or just want to run a few scenarios past, I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. We don't charge for our consultation meetings at all, and I would far rather someone has all the information to be able to make a really good informed decision then start charging people. We don't invoice for any work until it's all complete and the client is 100% happy. Up until that point, everything is completely free.
So if you were going to leave us with one big thought today, what would it be?
Well, I would say don't put off doing these things. If it's been on your mind that you think I really should make a will, or perhaps I should consider power of attorney, I would say don't think I should consider it. Think, let's do it, and just have a conversation with somebody that can help you and reassure you every step of the way, because none of us have got a crystal ball, and it just means that no matter what happens in the future, you particularly and your family, the people that you care about, are absolutely looked after without any questions. And you'll be amazed at actually how much better you feel afterwards, because it will have been, even in your subconscious, it will have been on your mind for a long time, and actually your shoulders will go down and you'll just feel a lot more relaxed about everything, hopefully.
So when it comes to wills and power of attorneys, it's don't delay, do it.
Absolutely. Great strapline. I might steal that.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Ali, for today. It's been really interesting, very illuminating. And I hope there's a lot of people out there who will think about getting their will written or a power of attorney written. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks for joining us on the Indie Interview. For more information, tools, or to book one of our team to work with you or your business, or if you'd like us to speak at your event or conference, visit imnotdoneyet.co.uk. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at andrew@imnotdoneyet.co.uk. Please do follow or like us on Facebook or Instagram.